In 2007/8 Xmas break during college, me and some friends went to Connecticut to my friend's GF mansion for a week. We got bored really quickly and somehow ended up on the idea that his GF, called her Meg, was going to drive us around and show us some of the really haunted areas around her house. We went to a few different spots to see what others see and were easily able to discount the things people had seen and that we saw as headlight flares and reflections, weird lighting stuff, etc. Boring, to be honest. Then she told us about Fairfield Hills. She told us that someone had died there or close to it, and that even though you were allowed to drive through the road that led around the property, you were not allowed to stop your car for any reason. You are not allowed to trespass for any reason, and being caught you would be taken down and arrested. She told us she had a friend go missing in HS who was dedicating a whole website to that place, and it scared her since. If you know this place, you know that all 13 or whatever abandoned buildings are connected by underground tunnels and that a lot of bad stuff has happened here. It is supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the US. Well, after she drove us through the first time the next day, she didn't want to go there at night. Of course, the three of us boys had the wise idea that we were going to break into one of these buildings and see if it is really haunted or not. We went to a store and grabbed a small crowbar, about 5 elves probably. We waited until dark and then we peer-pressured Meg into taking us there. She was adamant that you cannot stop or park your car and that we would be arrested if we got caught. This led us to the decision that we would specifically try to break into the U-shaped big building, using a door on the interior of its courtyard, so that we would not be seen as easily. Little did we know at the time that this was the building where they performed the electroshock therapy, and was easily the most hauntable, vile building of them all. For some context, it was me and 2 buddies from elementary all through college with me. One of them, call him Ethan, was the #1 jock in every sport all through HS, and I've never seen him back down from anything. He is also a staunch non-believer in all things supernatural. The other friend, call him Brian, was 1 year ahead of me in HS, and had done ROTC in HS and then did 1 tour in the Middle East before coming back and joining us in college. He has been in multiple firefights and had an IED go off not far from him. This guy likes to fight multiple people at a time when parties go south. Again, he's never backed down from anything. He is neither a believer or non-believer. Prove it to me is his stance. Then there is me, small guy, asthmatic. Also never backed down from anything, but basically because I never took anything seriously. Also, I am a believer in something supernatural, but not sure what. Like my army friend, I just keep the mental door open. Okay, so Meg agrees to drive us under these rules. She will drive through the place. She will slow down to a roll and we kill the dome lights and just jump out. She will then continue through the property and drive back around through twice, and if we don't jump out at the same point by the second trip, she was leaving and we were to sneak off the property alone and meet her at a landmark. She was extremely adamant about not stopping or waiting at all, afraid of a ticket. She was also scared as hell. She is a local and she didn't have any interest in messing with that place. That gives us about 25 minutes total to break in a walk around, and 13-ish minutes to catch her on the first trip around. We put the plan in action. No flashlights, just the 3 of us and me with a mini crowbar. We entered the courtyard of the big building and found a raised set of concrete steps leading to a normal-sized entry door. It was so dark in that courtyard, but through the little window in the door we could see what appeared to be a wall of handcuffs and like chains or straps fastened to the wall. It was creepy. I stepped in front of Brian and Ethan with the crowbar and raised it to the door. I never would have gotten that big beast open, but I was going to at least try. As I raised the crowbar, 5 elves at most mind you, and pressed it into the gap of the door, I felt the crowbar become 100 elves in my hand and it just flew to the ground. I mean, I'm getting sweats and anxiety just thinking about it. It's kind of a blur to be honest, but like slow motion at the same time. I mean, I felt that bar get ripped out my hand. I will never forget it. Ever. As soon as it happened, I mumbled something like that was weird AF and bent down to pick up the bar. I bent over forward and picked up the bar, and it felt as light and normal as in the beginning. As I gripped the bar and I heard Brian scream with the FK. Remember, we were supposed to be as quiet as possible, and this dude knows how to follow orders under pressure. I stood up and turned quickly behind me, and as I did, Brian, who was the one standing directly behind me when I tried to pry the door, was taking off down the concrete steps at full speed. He ran right through Ethan, who took one look at me and just yelled, "Are you in?" and took off behind Brian. At this point, we aren't being discreet at all, so we just keep running to our spot, and I don't have a fkin clue what is going on at this point. All I know is they ran. So I ran, and that something just did not effkin feel right. We get to the bushes and Brian and Ethan are just shoulder punching and pushing each other, going, "What the FK? Did you effkin see that?" in every way you can think of. Their hearts were pounding so much they could barely get enough breath to talk, and at the time I was just laughing inside so hard, thinking these are two of the toughest people I know, and I have never seen them scared, and I'm more worried getting arrested at this point. I wasn't even processing the crowbar incident yet, as the whole thing went down faster than you can read my words. Within about a minute, luckily, a car came down the way going super slow, and it was Meg. She stops and we all go run and get into the car quickly, and she's telling us to get the FK in. The security car is lapping the road and definitely saw her, and she just wants to GTFO of there. We get into the car and start driving, and Brian and Ethan are just staring blankly while Meg is asking what the hell happened. Ethan turns on the dome light and turns to Brian and says, "Dude, what the FK just happened?" To which I reply, "Yeah. WTF is going on, dude? Did you smack that crowbar out on my hand or something? Was there an alarm?" Brian turns toward me to say something. Then he looks past my head at the back window of the car and his eyes light up wide. He then grabbed me by the throat and starts punching me in the shoulder, saying, "That isn't effkin funny, dude. What the FK kind of prank is this?" I freak out, defending myself, saying, "IDK, what you mean, dude?" and turns my head with his hand, says, "You didn't effkin just write that bullshit." And right there, written on inside of the curved back window in the condensation, it says, "Help me," with a line stemming from the bottom of the E to the edge of the window like it was being written while the car was driving. We will skip a section here and come back so we can get all the good stuff out first. After the argument you will read about below, and adamantly swearing they did not hit the crowbar out of my hand, they tell me this: when I dropped the crowbar trying to break into the building, I bent down to pick it up. As I bent down to pick it up, my upper torso was replaced with the upper half of a effkin ghost woman. The upper half of a woman, in a veil and wavy dress or blouse, directly inside of where my upper body had been. White and green smoky transparency was the description I got. Her effkin ghost head was exactly where my head had just been. Brian was 1 foot behind me, and he said he was all of a sudden 1 foot away, staring eye to eye with effkin ghost woman. He said he felt terror beyond what he thought was even possible, and just immediately took off running as fast as he could. Ethan, who was watching our backs at the time, turned when Brian yelled and took off, and when he looked back he saw a rougher version of the same thing, but he said it was inside of the building looking out window, and that fear just took him over instantly and he followed Brian running. I don't care if you believe me, let's be clear about that. You have to know people the way I know these two guys to be able to believe. Even they don't entirely believe it all because they have the benefit of thinking that I was the one who wrote the words on the windshield. The explanation to which I will write below. But in the end I am the only person who knows that it was impossible for any of us to write it, and the only one who knows how it felt in the moment that crowbar came out of my hands. I will spare you the dialogue of our four-person screaming match that followed Brian seeing the words on the window, but here are the important parts. I am the only person who had sat in that particular seat the entire day/evening, and that writing was not there when we got dropped off. Meg could not have done it under any circumstances because she never stopped the car and was adamant that until we left the area she would not. And she didn't even stop the dang car fully so we could get in easier. B. She had long enough fingernails, and simply could not have written what was there without making other marks. C. Meg was livid when I said the words were not written by me. She was so upset, in fact, she threatened to not let me back to her house or drive me back to college if I didn't admit it. It took the entire night just to get them to stop attacking me because it was literally affecting their sanity. That would have been the first and only prank she ever played on us, and we loved pranking each other, so eventually she would have told us to claim her victory. It would have been too good of a moment to pass up, at least at some point over the next year when her and Ethan were still together, or in the breakup. Brian and Ethan never let it go. Every few weeks, then months, then years. Just tell me, man. You wrote that SHT on the window, right? They don't bring it up anymore, and last time I did they did not want to talk about it. I thought they just believed me in the end, but I'm pretty sure now they just can't accept it. We Googled that place a lot after that night, and sure enough, the most common accusations about that place are white silhouettes and words written in windows. I don't know what happened that night, but I'm telling you right now, it was nothing.